break down month by month the games that we think are going to be tests, surprises, things that could go through that. Let's get right after it in September. The big one, the road game at Nevada. This is a good football team.
Right. I think this is definitely going to be the Red Raiders' toughest non-conference game. They've got to go on the road. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the New Mexico game a couple of years ago. I believe I was the only one who picked New Mexico to win that game on our AJ sports staff. I don't think Nevada's going to pull an upset, but I think this game is going to be a lot closer than the Red Raiders hope it is. But maybe if they are able to pull out a win, come back to Lubbock safely, maybe that'll be an early wake-up call this team might need.
Yeah, Nevada's a team that has a lot of offensive weapons. The leading rusher in the WAC last year, Luke Lippincott, back for them. He had 1,200-something yards, if I remember correctly. They had two quarterbacks who have played and have experience. The guy who kind of emerged for him last year is Colin Kaepernick, the tall kid, 6'6". He wound up being the freshman of the year in their conference. So they have weapons. Then they also have the pistol offense,
the
which
pistol
is
and the spread.
One of the coolest names for an offense in college football. So it's going to be the air raid against the pistol, and that's been the consensus is that among most people is that Nevada is the toughest non-conference opponent, the potential game where Tech has to be careful, or this could be the game that could wreck everything. But the thing that bothers me about Nevada, or maybe going along with that line of thinking, is Nevada finished the season last year by getting shut out
in the New Mexico Bowl.
How do you get when you have those kind of good offensive personnel and an offense that has some that's tough for a defense to get ready for? How do you get shut out? But those guys did. So it's hard for me to conceive of a team that laid a goose egg in its last game, actually beaten Tech, which hasn't been shut out since 1997.
Right. And the other thing you mentioned, SMU, intriguing. June Jones in from Hawaii, brand new offense. Basically, Justin Willis, the returning quarterback, told, welcome to the third string. They're going to start a true freshman.
3 years from now, I think this is a game that may be a worry about because I think June Jones will be successful. He's a guy whose track record has been that he generally is successful. And I think particularly coaching in Texas, he'll be able to find, just like Missouri has and Kansas has, and he'll be able to find a Texas quarterback that can run his offense and all manner of athletes who can go run pass routes for him. I think he'll make SMU, give us SMU the best chance it's had in a while to be a good football team, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen this year. And when they come to Jones Stadium on September the 13th, I look for them to probably get their heads handed to them.
Right. I agree, Don. I think you could put SMU this year anyway in the Patsy category along with UMass and Eastern Washington.
Right. And on a side note on UMass, just an interesting point. Over their last 39 games, they have averaged giving up only 14 points. It'll be very interesting to see how they adjust against Texas Tech's offense. October, guys. October is a month marked with road games. At Kansas State, at A&M, at Kansas, the one home game on October 11th against Nebraska. What sticks out to you there?
Well, to me, everyone might look at the Texas A&M game. Well, they have to play in College Station. It's always close. The Aggies are always going to bring their best game that day. That's the case, but I think this year with the new coach, they don't have a whole lot of athletes. They're still making some adjustments. I think Texas Tech's okay in that game at A&M. I'd be more worried about the trips to Kansas State and Kansas. I'm going to go ahead. I think the Red Raiders are going to lose one of those games.
Really?
Might be Kansas State. Kansas is probably more likely with what they did last year. But I think you're looking at the Red Raiders' first slip of the season. One of those trips to Kansas.
Lawrence, Kansas, being their demise.
The thing with Kansas State, you don't know what you're getting right now because they do have the veteran quarterback in Josh Freeman, a really talented guy, but they went whole hog on JUCO transfers.
19 of them, Don.
At least. I think I count more than that in their media guide. Ron Prince said that for a couple of years he's had a young football team. He's had 18, 19-year-old guys going and getting knocked around by 22, 23-year-old players in the Big 12. Hasn't enjoyed that too much. So he said, they wanted to be a more. They thought year 3. The combination of some of their young guys getting older, they wanted to blend in a whole bunch of JUCO transfers so you'd have a more veteran team. So it's hard for me to tell what K-State's going to have, and I think maybe even by October 4th it's kind of hard to tell what you're going to have. You mentioned the Kansas game.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what they did last year. They're a team that, they didn't lose much. What they did lose, though, is extremely significant when you're talking Aqib Talib at corner and James McClinton at a defensive tackle who was like third-team All-American,
right.
I believe. They lost the offensive tackle, Anthony Collins, who was a finalist for the Outland. So they not a whole bunch of loss in terms of numbers, but a big loss in terms of some key people. But I do think Kansas is in position to have a good follow-up because they're the #1 defense in the nation last year. They have 9 starters back.
They do.
And then Todd Reesing, again, he's one of those Texas quarterbacks who went north and just did a terrific job for them last year. So that is a dangerous game. Thinking though about Kansas is that's never been a real intimidating environment. It's maybe the least intimidating environment of any football program in the Big 12. It seems like
very calm individuals in Lawrence, and I'm not going any farther.
Well,
but anyway,
particularly when you're talking about, even the waving of the wheat.
Well, yeah, that's not imposing. That's friendly.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, November. If there was anything close to a playoff system, here it is. This is where the big dogs are going to be separated. You're talking Texas and Oklahoma. It doesn't get any bigger than that. The whole season's going to set right there.
That's right, and I think. I think the Red Raiders, it pains me to say this, but I think the Red Raiders will get off to a good start in November, playing Texas at home. The Longhorns have a very young secondary. They might have all freshmen in the secondary when the season starts. I think Tech's going to be able to weather that storm and beat Texas.
That would be the first time since 2002 that Tech would beat Texas.
I think the Horns are going to give them a game, but to me this seems like one of those games in Texas Tech's backyard that they can pull out a win. They can find a way to win, much like Oklahoma last year,
right,
and 2 years before that.
As we sit here in late August, too, that game is already sold out.
That's crazy.
Usually, no matter how fired up folks have been about Tech football, and how enthusiastic crowds are when Texas comes to town and Texas A&M comes to town. Usually, still during the season though, you can still get a ticket here and there.
Right.
Tickets are already sold out for this game.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if they're going to try to find some more metal bleachers to park in another corner of the stadium.
Yeah, I saw several disappointed individuals walk into the ticket office yesterday asking for Texas tickets, only to be told, sorry, there's not one left.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you talk about the big dog. November 22nd, if everything goes like everybody's predicting, they're talking 2 undefeated teams, Big 12 South Championship, National Championship, quarterfinal game, essentially, Oklahoma. That's going to be a big atmosphere in Norman.
It is, and I don't. I've been trying to go over this in my head, think about possible scenarios. I just don't see any way that Texas Tech can come back to Lubbock with a win.
Really?
In Norman, OU is poised for a big year. All the national pundits are picking them to win the Big 12, maybe even play in the national championship game. And you look what happened last year. The Sooners come to Lubbock. Their train is derailed by Texas Tech. They're going to get back at them this year. That's going to me, that's a loss for Texas Tech. If they can get to that game with no losses or only 1 loss, they might have an outside shot at maybe playing in the BCS. But I don't see how they can beat the Sooners in Norman.
I agree with Adam to the extent that it's going to be a real tough place for Tech to win. Tech hasn't won in Norman since 1996. I think the thing though that from a Tech standpoint, if you're a Tech fan, that's encouraging is Tech has made progress against Oklahoma over the last 3 or 4 years. Unlike, say, Texas. Texas there for a while. They were beating Tech. Yeah, it wasn't even close. Oklahoma, on the other hand, in the first half of Mike Leach's tenure, Bob Stoops' defense has completely kept Tech under their thumb.
Right.
Held them to something, to the average of like 1 offensive touchdown a game there for about 4 or 5 years. In 2005, Tech wins the game here. In 2007, Tech, of course, wins the game here, 34-27. Had a good night offensively that night. And in 06, the last trip to Norman, Tech has a 24-10 lead in that game.
They did.
In the second quarter. And then does nothing offensively in the second half of that game. But the last 3 years, though, they've gone from a team that Oklahoma just dominated to a team that that they've won two of the last three and probably should have won that 06 game up in Norman. So at least I think Mike Leach and Tech they're kind of figuring out something, and they're having more success against Oklahoma, which I think will give them more confidence as they go up there to play that game. Although I do agree with Adam, based on, if nothing else alone, setting, I think you probably take the home game in that. Take the home team in that game, and OU should be the favorite to win up there.
Yeah, but also remember on the side of that, OU's laid an egg in the last 2 or 3 seasons. 1 to 2 times a year, they just have an off game. And if you do that against a team like Texas Tech with that caliber of offense, you're going to be in trouble. And then, they close the season with Baylor. Art Briles comes over from Houston, takes over that program. Might be a long year for Coach Briles and the Mighty Bears, even though they do have Miami transfer, Kirby Freeman, who might get some time at quarterback there. The teams that Tech goes away from this year that are off their Big 12 schedule from the north, you talk about Missouri, Colorado, and Iowa State. Missouri we know about.
Boy, it's a good year to miss Missouri, I'll tell you that for sure. Don't have to see Chase Daniel or Jeremy Macklin for the next couple of years. It's a good time for them to rotate off. Now, I think from a Tech standpoint, it's a good time to have Nebraska rotate back on, because Bo Pelini's reputation aside, defensive coordinator for the LSU Tigers, I don't think the talent level at Nebraska is that great, and the mere fact that he's new head coach, putting in his system, by the time he comes to Lubbock, they'll have only had 5 games of experience in it. This will be their first road game when they come to Lubbock. It will. And so I think Tech is catching Nebraska at a good time. And also, fortunate for a good thing for Tech is that Missouri's gone, and I guess probably also I tell you another thing that's good for Tech is that Colorado's gone too, because there's a team that not only have they beaten you the last couple of years, but that's a team I think is going to continue to get better, because now they're in year 3 of Dan Hawkins' program. Year 3, should make a natural progression. Plus, they have one of the most outstanding running back recruits in the nation, and Darrell Scott, a guy's about 6'2", 215, and so
everything.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you don't see him, you don't have to tackle him for 2 years is another, I think, plus for Tech.
Don, you mentioned having to miss Missouri. It may seem good for now, but if I'm Mike Leach of the Red Raiders, I want to play Missouri, because that means you might be in the Big 12 championship game. To me, Missouri looks like they're clearly the cream of the North. Maybe that Texas Tech OU game decides who plays Missouri in the Big 12 championship.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think Missouri's the favorite there, and you're right. You do on December whatever it is, for first Saturday in December, you do want to play Missouri. I think you're right about that.
And a side note, Colorado, good team to stay away from. You talk about a brutal non-conference schedule. Features Colorado State, who's been down, but that's for blood. That game is always going to be tough. And then West Virginia and at Florida State. That team's going to be a little cranky by the time it gets to conference play. A good team to stay away from. And then, as we mentioned, Iowa State, it might be a rough year for the Cyclones. They got to bring in a new quarterback. They lost a lot. Hasn't been exactly a smooth road up there in Ames.
Dad, they took the little whirly bird off the helmet too. And, they're going back to more traditional.
And I got to say on a note, if you've seen
what's the world coming to, Dad?
If you've seen Iowa State's new uniforms, the only thing I really have to say is, come on, are you kidding me? They stole USC's design. Get original and do something on your own. Sorry, that's my rant on the side.